Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to give you your forecast for the new moon in Scorpio taking place on November 1st. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your daily life and spiritual growth. As always, before I dive into the forecast, let's recap where we're coming from in order to understand where we're headed. I think one of the most important things to mention about this new moon, it's that it's the lunar event that officially ends eclipse season. We have been in the middle of a very intense, very transformative eclipse season that started with the new moon in Virgo on September 2nd. And that chunk of time between September 2nd and November 1st, I'm sure you can agree, has brought a lot of deep lessons around relationships, around the relationship with ourself, our sense of self-worth, and that has informed the way we are moving forward from this point on. But this new moon is the invitation of asking ourselves, based on the things that I have learned over this eclipse season of the last 8 weeks, how am I being asked to transform? And more importantly, how am I committing myself to that transformation? This is incredibly important to understand because this new moon isn't separate from the new moon in Virgo of September 2nd or the solar eclipse in Libra of October 2nd. This is a story that has been unfolding. And as we have stepped into the difficult situations, whether it's with others or within ourselves, this Scorpio energy is about integrating, is about recognizing our power of transformation. This is the beautiful opening that this new moon offers us, and our willingness to honor the truths about who we have to become in order to go to the next level of life is greatly supported by the transformative energy of Scorpio. So let's get started with what this new moon represents. So this new moon is taking place at 9 degrees and 35 minutes of Scorpio, which means that the sun and the moon are together at 9 degrees, 35 minutes. And what are the rulers of Scorpio doing? The traditional ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and it is at 29 degrees Cancer. And the modern ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and Pluto is at 29 degrees Capricorn. This means that the two rulers of this new moon are in direct opposition to one another. And this is probably the configuration that is the most important of this new moon. And here's why. We have been talking a lot about Mars in opposition to Pluto, what that can represent, and some of the themes. But if we really move into an empowered way, right, into an empowered point of view of looking at this opposition, this is something where we get to dig deep within ourselves and find out who we really are to a point that we may even surprise ourselves if we commit to the work and the transformation that this chapter of our lives is asking us to step into. So Mars and Pluto have their first opposition during this new moon. They're going to have a second opposition in January, and then they're going to have a third and final opposition in April. What does this mean? That this transformation that we're being called into, this work that we're being called into putting, is going to last really between now and the full moon in Scorpio that takes place in May of 2025. Okay. So what is the Mars-Pluto opposition? Mars in Cancer is about what is worth fighting for. Why do I want to head in the direction that I want to head in? And here's the thing. Mars is ruled by the moon. And the moon represents things that are very familiar and comfortable to us. It represents things that we consider home, not just because of the place that we live in, but because there's a sense of safety, there's a sense of comfort there. And Mars in Cancer And Mars getting ready to retrograde between December, January, and February will be about us revising, reviewing, and reconsidering the way that we move forward with life and with certain things just because they feel comfortable. We begin to question, why does this feel comfortable? And I think that one of the more powerful things of this Mars-Pluto opposition is that it's going to give us the opportunity to observe our patterns. Wherever Pluto is involved, yes, there is transformation that is going to take place. And so here we have Pluto, right, in Capricorn, saying something that we have done in a particular way, under a particular mindset, under a particular set of rules, because this is what we were told to do, has to change, has to transform. Essentially, it has to end, it has to die. And the opposition to Mars in Cancer is, but this is the way that I do things because this is what feels comfortable to me, and this is the way that I've known things, right? And so if this new moon in Scorpio is about committing to a transformation, and Mars and Pluto are going to have 3 oppositions between now and April of 2025, it means that we are, over the next 5 to 6 months, going to be confronted with our habitual patterns in terms of how we do life and how we approach it. And if we are willing to do things differently, if we are willing to have a different mindset about what we're capable of, about what we actually want to do in the world and how we want to show up, this entire process is about who we become and not about who we thought we would be. And I really invite you to think about that, because Pluto is currently in the sign of Capricorn, getting ready to leave the sign of Capricorn on November 11th. And in our lifetime, we will never see a Pluto in Capricorn again. Pluto in Aquarius is about, we're moving in a different direction. We're looking ahead. There is something that we have to be willing to lose. We have to be willing to let go of. We have to be willing to let something die in order for us to gain something greater on the other side. Now, here's the thing. What I think we're going to have to let go of is a pattern of how we approach life and how we do things, more than anything else. And how that then manifests into your life, it differs for everyone, right? So it may be the literal letting go of certain relationships, a job, a place. But to me, this feels much more like a mindset, a belief system. Again, habitual patterns within ourselves. Because if there's anything that Scorpio is great at, Scorpio energy that we can all utilize, is the transformation of certain patterns that are deeply rooted. And the understanding of why they're so deeply rooted is the thing that transforms. Because a lot of times we behave in certain ways for a very, very, very long time. And then we end up believing that that's who we actually are. We end up calling it our personality. We end up identifying with certain ways of being in life and about the world, that we forget that we are soul, that we forget that we are a light that is much more expansive than that particular identity or habitual pattern has allowed us to believe. And this is a great remembering. If this new moon in Scorpio represents anything, is the remembering of our ability not only to transform and to regenerate and to really change our lives and ourselves, but of the actual power of doing it, right? This entire process, and I will remind you of this again and again, is not about what we accomplish and what we manifest on the outside. It is about who we become in the process. And anytime that we have an experience where Scorpio and Pluto are involved, it is about getting to the core of who we truly are. This is so, so important, because we're headed into an era as Pluto moves into Aquarius where we are going to let go of being measured by numbers, by following, by money, by degrees, by titles. Not that those things are going to go away, But I think that as individuals and therefore as a collective, we are going to give that, we're going to second shelf that, and we are going to high shelf our soul, our light, what we came here to offer, and the understanding that what we came here to offer is important because we can only do it in the way that we can do it. We are being called to understand our uniqueness, our unique light, our unique voice, based on what the last 8 weeks of this eclipse season has shown you no longer works. So let me give you an example. How many of your relationships have changed over the last 8 weeks, right? How have you noticed that you have outgrown certain people, certain places, certain things? That can only happen. That can only happen when you understand how much you have changed and your desire and the crave to be around different people, different energy, different conversations, right? And what does it really boil down to? Is that we are tired of being around people who not only do not fully appreciate who we are, but who we can't be our true selves with. And Mars in Cancer is about fighting for what feels safe in our lives. And so much of the last 8 weeks has been about relationships. So even this new moon in Scorpio tells me that relationships are going to play a big role in our lives over the next, I don't know, 6 to 8 months in terms of who we become. So this can look like who we connect with, who we network with, who our friendships, what our friendships look like, what our friendships feel like, what our conversations feel like. What are we talking about? What are we envisioning? What types of deep conversations are we having? There is an energy here of the desire for profundity in whatever way that fits your life and whatever way that fits who you have become and who you continue to become over the next 6 to 8 months. This is a big new moon. I mean, talk about the end of eclipse season going off with a bang because of this Mars-Pluto opposition. Another important factor of this new moon is the fact that this new moon is creating a trine to Saturn currently retrograde in Pisces at 12 degrees. Anytime the sun and Saturn are involved in something, this is us, the ego, sun and Scorpio, showing up and saying, this is how I'm willing to step into this transformation. This is how I'm willing to step into this new role, this leveling up in my life. This is how I'm answering that calling. And I know that I have to become someone else in order to do this, right? One simple example, there are 3 people in the last couple of weeks that have let me know that they have either finished writing a book or have written a book proposal. 3 people. So what does that mean? Those people went from not seeing themselves as writers to now seeing themselves as writers. So who they become along the process of their books, of some of them finishing writing their books, of their books being published, of their books and of their ideas, of what's in their soul being put out there, there's a difference in their identity. Now what's being added to their identity? Writer, right? So who are they becoming? And how are they committing to the process, to the Saturnian process of this transformation? It's a simple example, and I invite you to take the themes of that example, apply it to your own life. How is your identity being invited to shift? And how does the shift of that identity require that you commit to something in the long run? Because remember, Saturn reminds us we are running a marathon, not a sprint. And where the sun and Saturn are involved, there is a sense of seriousness there. I am committing Saturn to myself, the sun in Scorpio, for what this requires. And there is almost like a laser focus and an intensity that Scorpio brings into this dynamic. If we're talking about this from a very practical level, the sun in Scorpio is that. The practicality, the focus, I don't care about the bullshit around. I'm not going to distract myself with things of a lower vibration, with things that don't serve me. Because Saturn and Pisces is, remember, I'm not obligated to do anything, but I do commit myself, I do devote myself, Saturn, to this, which is so meaningful to me at a soul level, Pisces, right? The moon trine Saturn is when I honor the commitment, when I show up for myself and don't entertain any BS and don't entertain any chaos, right? Because that's a lower expression of Scorpio, chaos, constant crises, and not asking ourselves why. But when we do ask ourselves why, the moon in Scorpio says, I am focused, I am aligned, this is exactly what's meant for me. And a trine between the moon and Saturn, that's a sense of emotional safety. So whatever we are committing ourselves to step into, whatever we are committing ourselves to no longer entertain in our lives because of who we've become in the last 8 weeks is going to bring us a sense of emotional safety and a great sense of self-love, because we are not allowing chaos to enter our lives. We are not allowing the things that don't serve us to enter our lives. Look, I'm speaking about this in this way because we are really in a place. I believe that a lot of things have been made clear for us. I believe that we are in a place collectively. We know where we stand. We know what we believe in. We know who we can count on. We know who we cannot. We know what we want. Like, there is a clarity there for everyone. So why continue distracting ourselves with they're not showing up in this way, they don't want to do this? That's valuable information for you. The higher expression of Scorpio is the understanding that the only thing that we have any type of control over is the connection to our deepest sense of self. The lower expression is thinking that we have control over others, which creates chaos and crises in our life. Think about that and ask yourself, how do I want this energy to transform me? Do I want to go along for the ride with the universe and allow it to surprise me in the most pleasant ways? Or do I want to continue pitfalling into the same old dynamics and lessons until I actually get it? At the time of the full moon in Scorpio in May of 2025, the North Node will be at a conjunction to Saturn. This is the manifestation of something that we have committed to. And the North Node in Pisces is going to represent the belief in something greater, the belief in something beyond us. And by beyond us, I mean beyond the identity and beyond the ego that wants you to continue playing small. But in order for you to understand what not playing small means, it means that you have to focus on the light that you carry within. That's a transformation. To remember, I am not just this ego. I am not just this identity. I am not this body. I am something much more profound, much wiser. And that when I connect to that, there is a guidance. There is a guidance beyond anything I have ever experienced. That's transformative, because you will go from trying to effort your way through life into simply aligning with the things that are meant for you. Does that mean you don't work? Absolutely not. Because Saturn trine, this new moon, is effort, right? Not over exertion, not over efforting. Because when you are aligned with something that is special to you at a soul level, you're not doing anything extra. You're not vying for attention. You're not chasing anything. You just understand that you're stepping into your purpose and that everything that is meant for you won't miss you and will exactly align with you. But you do have to show up. You have to show up for yourself. There has to be a certain sense of consistency and discipline on your part, but not a discipline that comes from anything that you feel obligated to do, but something that you're devoted to. This is so important. This is much more about who we become along the process. And I think that who we get to become, who we get to realize that we are, is an immense, powerful being that gets to finally live a life that feels aligned. That's the transformation there. As I mentioned a few moments ago, there is something that we will, air quotes, lose. There is something that we will leave behind. And I think that for some people, that's going to be more tangible, more obvious, more physically manifested than for others, right? But I like to remember what Kyle Cease says. The mind can always measure what it's going to lose, but it cannot measure what it's going to gain. And the Pisces energy that is activated by Saturn at the moment, and that is going to be heavily activated with the North Node transiting there, is asking you to trust, to go beyond the mind that cannot see what you stand to gain by allowing this transformation to take place. I think we're ready to level up, but not from an egoic place, but from the place we were always meant to level up from, and that's a soul level. Another important aspect of this new moon is the fact that Mercury in Scorpio, right? That focus, keeping my eye on the prize, not tolerating any stuff from anyone, not myself, the deep, profound understanding of myself, is in opposition to Uranus retrograde at 25 degrees Taurus. Okay, so the opposition between Mercury and Uranus, Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury, is Mercury and Scorpio can bring up a lot of our shadow, can bring up a lot of our fears, can bring up a lot of our insecurities. And the opposition to Uranus and Taurus says, what happens when you simply look at what's coming up from a place of the observer and not identify with it? Because we have to remember that the gift of Taurus, as Stephen Forrest teaches us, the gift of Taurus is simplicity. So what happens when we don't fall into the drama, into the chaos, when we don't get completely enveloped by the Mercury and Scorpio shadow thoughts that may come up, and we simply observe it? What Uranus does there is that it says, detach yourself from that identity. Radically detach yourself from that identity and understand that that is not who you are. And all of a sudden, that Mercury and Scorpio shadow, those Mercury and Scorpio limiting thoughts, scary memories, no longer have power over us, because Uranus and Taurus says, ground yourself. Who are you right now? Who do you know you're becoming? What are you stepping into? What do you want to step into? Who do you want to become? What have the last 8 weeks shown you about this next chapter of your life? And the simplicity of Taurus is, when I do not get caught up in the drama and the chaos of my own thoughts, and I just observe, there's a healing that happens there, because I remember that I am the observer. I remember that I am the I am. And when we talk about Mercury in Scorpio at a deeply profound level, we get to the core of who we are. The core of who we are is that it is the I am that I am. I recognize myself as a divine being that is being divinely led, held, sustained, provided for, and guided. Look, I'm sharing this with you in this way because when we think of the collective, when we think of this from a macro level, we are headed into an era in which I think more and more people are going to remember who they truly are and begin to create their lives from that place. This is why more and more people are working for themselves. This is why more and more people are waking up to the fact that they don't have to follow this path that they were told they had to follow in order to be successful, in order to be someone in the world. We came here because we have a voice, because we have a point of view to share with others. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody has to, become a content creator or a coach or a facilitator. Although I can see more and more people stepping into that space because they're beginning to recognize their voice. But what I am saying is that a Mercury in Scorpio can get you to the understanding that no one but you has the responsibility to liberate yourself, to liberate your mind. Think about, especially here in the United States, we are in the middle of, election season. And what I notice is more and more people waking up to the fact and waking up to a lot of facts and asking themselves, is this really what we want? Right? And I'm not here to say what I think, who you should vote for or anything like that. I am just saying that I notice that more people are asking more questions and asking, what are different options? What about other people in other places of the world? There is an awakening that is happening, and Mercury and Scorpio is about looking at the shadow of what we're experiencing, of what the collective is experiencing, of what other parts of the world are experiencing, and saying, how are we ignoring that? How are we pretending that that's not happening and we're just having an election, right? This is really interesting because there is an awakening that is happening. Mercury in opposition to Uranus. It's like a light bulb moment. It's a light bulb moment that comes from tension, right? So think about that. Pay attention to that, because you will have moments of tension. You will have moments that are in which you are going to question not just your own reality, but your own thoughts, but your own patterns. That is the point, for you to move beyond the patterns and begin to realize just how much direction, sovereignty, and power you have over the outcome of your experience. Another thing that Mercury is doing at the time of this new moon is that it's creating a trine, a beautiful trine to Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Both of these energies ask us to go within. Mercury in Scorpio says, go deep, don't stay on the surface. Think profound thoughts. Think about how profound you are. And Neptune in Pisces is inviting us to go inward. So to me, this on the one hand feels like intense channeling energy. So for those of you who are creatives, if you create anything, think about how you can channel your work. And even if you don't consider yourself a creative, think about how potentially meditating or praying or going deeply within can allow you to reach different parts of yourself, different parts of your wisdom, so that you could go about life, about your relationships, about your day-to-day, about your professional work from a different place within. One of the things that I really love about Neptune in Pisces is the reminder of the connection to something much deeper, of the reminder that we don't have to try to escape. We don't have to try to ignore our reality or the reality of how things are happening. But we do get to go within, to get in touch with a wisdom that gets to guide us. And so that's a beautiful trine. If in case you're finding yourself in a position right now of, I don't know what to do, that's ego talk. That's what the ego says. The ego says, I need to do something and I don't know what it is. But when we step into soul talk, When we allow spirit, source to come to communicate to us, to really come through us, then we are guided into something. Then that's when we think about the person who we can call that can help us. That's when we run into the person who knows a person that can help us. That's the energy that we're being asked to tap into with this beautiful trine and this beautiful new moon, because a huge part of what we have to transform as a collective is the way that we look at life. And the way that we look at life as a collective is so linear, and linear is limiting. Linear is limiting. Soul is expansive. Soul is full of possibilities that the mind cannot fathom. And when we remember that, we remember just exactly how limitless we are. And I think that what adds to this energy of limitlessness is that in the background, Venus in Sagittarius is saying, yes, I want to experience something else. I want to connect and have a different relationship to life that feels more expansive, that feels more adventurous. I want to meet people from different walks of life. So if what life is asking you to step into right now is somewhere where you haven't stepped into, Venus in Sagittarius says, ask all the questions, talk to different kinds of people, open yourself up to meeting people in different walks of life, because you just never know. I think that this new moon invites us so much to allow the magic of the universe to work with us. And the way that we meet the universe halfway is, again, we show up for the things that we know we need to show up for, and let go of what the universe is clearly showing us we need to let go of. Because transformation is transformation, and it'll come again with some loss. It'll come either with a loss of identity, a loss of a pattern, a loss of a habit, a loss of a mindset, or a loss of something tangible. And we have to remember that where we are going, certain things or certain people cannot come with us, and that's okay. That's okay. And that it doesn't even make the other bad or wrong. It just means that we have served a purpose in each other's lives, and that's okay, because Venus and Sagittarius craves freedom to be and go and explore and experience. And as soon as it feels stifled by something, that energy dies, that fire dies. And the last thing we want is for our fire to die, because we are just getting started. May this be of service to you. So much love to you. I'm so excited to come on here every single week and speak to you. I love your comments. Thank you so much. Don't forget that I'm doing the yearly readings. Sign up. It's a 75-minute session with me in which we get to chat. I get to tell you all about 2025, what's coming up for you. I'm also integrating it all with a guided meditation on the session, so make sure that you take advantage of that. Much love, and I will see you next week.